Hello folks, this is John Kurt with Imagine What here in Cypress, Texas, which is just outside of Houston on the northwest side. And I'm doing some tutorials in TurboCAD 2019 Pro Platinum for a couple reasons. Number one, to dispel the myth that you need to be drawing in the same software program that the end user happens to have, because that's not really the issue. CAD is CAD. I'm just going to say this. I'm probably going to say it every single time I do a tutorial. But if you got good CAD software, you got good CAD software. If you set it up correctly, it's going to give exactly the correct results. And so what I'm going to be doing in this particular video is showing how to set things up correctly. Okay, so the biggest thing you need to understand is if you don't tell the software what you want, it's not going to give it to you. Okay, so there are a lot of options here. There's a lot of tools here. There's actually a lot more tools than I'll probably ever use or ever even know how to use. But let's do some basics. And again, I'm pleased because I actually, in doing this presentation, I found that there's a screen that I actually prefer. So if you saw my first presentation, you might notice a difference. But anyway, let's talk about setup here. The first thing you need to be aware of is how you want your tools. There's a lot of drawing tools in a CAD program, whether it's TurboCAD or whether it's Inventor or whether it's SolidWorks or CATIA or whatever. And quite frankly, that's the most difficult part of any CAD program is learning all those tools. And some programs do better than others at certain tools or certain features, but I'm limiting my presentations to those who want to do drafting, to those who want to provide a 3D CAD model and a set of 2D drawings. So from the last tutorial I did, we had this little part that I made. So now I want to explain what's going on here on screen. Okay, so to do that, first of all, let me explain how I have my tools set up. I don't generally draw in 2D. I generally draw in 3D. And if you look over here to the right, I have got the tools selection here, and you can see a variety of different tools that I would use to draw in 3D. But there are occasions when I need 2D tools, and those are generally when I want to do a profile of something and then extrude it into a 3D. But anyway, to explain, I normally have my 3D tools over on the right-hand side. I generally have my 2D tools on the left-hand side. Now, in the right-hand side, this is called a palette box. I have a whole bunch of different tabs here. So right now, I'm in Tools. It says Tools here. If I go to Selector Information, and I go ahead and I select this, okay, you're going to see a whole bunch of things come up. If I can get the box open. Okay, so all the properties of this particular part here that's highlighted are, this is a history here. So we started with the box, we put a hole in it, we filleted it, we chamfered it, we did a number of different things. I can edit all of these things here if I need to. So When I select on a particular item, I can come up here and it gives me the ability to add the content. Okay, so there's a box. If I wanted to change the box, I can change the box. There's other ways to do it as well, but that's one of the ways to do it, which keeps your history intact. Okay, now I can also come down here and I can change the box by dropping in whatever the measurements need to be. And you'll also notice that at the very bottom here, these are all my real critical measurements. So I can rescale it on the X, the Y, the Z. These are my sizes. If I want to change the size, I will highlight it and then change it. If I want to move it, on the X scale, keep in mind, this is the directions of your XYZ scale. So I'm going to go to a 3D view here so you can see it a little better. Okay, so if I want to move this particular part in the X direction, plus is going to be that way, minus is going to be that way. The Y direction is going to be, plus is going to be that way, and minus is going to be that way, and of course Z. Z is your height, okay? So I'm going to go in here. This is your height. You can see X, Y, Z. All right. Now, there are called user coordinates. I'll explain this to you right now when you go into options here. You can actually set it up on what you prefer. Right now it says I always, and my default is always show world coordinates system. User coordinate system can be anything, and I always go world. I put my little icon right here, which I'm circling with my cursor, in the lower left hand corner, bottom left. I can change the size of that. It's fine at 120. Or I can change the colors if I want to. I have no inclination to change those colors. I've gotten used to them over the past 10 years. Aperture size is the size of these little boxes here. So I can increase or I can decrease those. Now, one of the biggest things you need to set up is number one, and it's not even here. Number one is your space units. Now you can tell it whatever you want in terms of how you want units displayed. It can be engineering, it can be architectural, it can be absolute. I generally, unless I'm doing a floor plan or a house, I generally use engineering. You can tell it whatever units you want, whether it be metric or English. Okay, this is where you control the accuracy. It says precision here. I can go all the way out if I wanted to whoa, I didn't even know I could go that far. And the last one was only 6. The last version is 6. Okay, but I generally only go out 3. But I can also have it round off. So here, if you see my cursor here, I'm in English. I can also change it to metric. And this is very important because if my end user is always looking at metric, when he imports my CAD drawing, you want to give him his primary unit measurement, because CAD doesn't care whether you are in English units, metric units, whether you're looking at inches, feet, yards, miles. It doesn't care. A unit to CAD is a unit. So it's very critical you tell it what unit, because all it does is it takes that unit. For example, if I got something in inches and it's 10 inches, it's going to use the math to calculate 10 inches. And if I want to convert that over to metric, it's going to use a conversion, and it's going to give you 10 of whatever it is that you selected. So it's critical for your end user that you are using the appropriate metric or unit that they use. Okay, so that's one of the very first questions you need to address with your customer. Now I should have in here, well, angle is also important. When you use ortho, the default is 90. I always put it at 45. I like 45. It gives me a little bit more information. You can tell it whether you want the angle to increase or decrease clockwise, counterclockwise, blah, blah, blah. I always use counterclockwise because I believe that's standard. Layers, you can set up layers any which way you want. My normal, these are my normal layers here. Again, if I want to set all this stuff up, I can. I'm just going to go click through a few. What I really wanted to get down to, and maybe I'll have to do that on another screen, so let's just go ahead and do that. I want to get into rounding. So if I come up here to Tools, and I select a dimension, and I go to Properties, and this works with all tools. Units tolerance. Okay, I've got this one rounding off at 0.005. If I want, I can make it 0.001. I can make it whatever. Okay, the precision, I've got the 3, but this is where I can do the round offs. Now on tolerances, I can, alternate units. I can go ahead and give it to you. Sorry, I gotta come up here. I can give it to you in whatever alternate unit you want. Okay, so these are all different types of, and typically I do this for somebody who, for example, it may be a Japanese company and they want it in millimeters, but everything else is in inches. So my secondary measurement could be any of these things here. Okay, I'm not using alternate units here. I've got it set up to do English units, and that's what I'm going to do. All right. Okay, so that's all important to set up. Now, how you want your toolboxes to look is up to you. Any tool can be moved anywhere. You can put it in any place you want. Okay, all you got to do is drag it to where you want. Okay. I don't want that. Undo that. Yeah. It's making me look silly here. All right, I'm going to put it back where it was, right there. I want this back down here. All right, so you can drag your tools wherever you want. In terms of tools, these are all the tool groups that can be displayed. Okay, I have probably more tools displayed than I actually need. And it always ends up, something will happen somewhere along the way. I'll blow it up, and I'll have to start over and get my tools back the way I originally had them. So the program has a feature here where you can recall your last setup, and I've named it my old layout. Okay, so if I save this theme right now, in my old layout, it means that's what I'm going to get the next time I go ahead and open the screen. If I want to change the style or theme, I can do that up here. There are many different themes you can set, and I'm not even going to go into it because you can spend hours in here getting it to look the way you want. And as I said, I just reset my theme from default to this theme, and I actually like it. So I want to work with it for a while because it's pretty easy to read, and I want to see how that works. But anyway, once you save it into your old layout, if you blow it up for some reason or another, and believe me, with CAD it happens, you go back to here and you load from my old layout, and it'll bring you back to where you were. Okay, so you got that going. So you got and these little guys here, these increase or decrease the icon sizes. So if I bring this up a little bit, some of my icons are going to increase in size. And let's see if this one will increase. This is always the one that I would like to see increase. It never seems to increase. But anyway, if you increase it too much, you start squeezing your screen down to where, you know, it's too large. So it's going to go back. I don't need it that big. All right. So you got that. This palette's here, it tells me what I got going on over here. So right now I got selector information. There's selector information, it's ticked. I've got blocks. I got blocks ticked. I got layer. I got layer ticked down here someplace. Drafting and tools. Those are my most common ones, but I could put any one of these down there. Depending on what type of drawing I'm doing. For example, BIM is very popular for architects. I can select BIM if I want and put it there. We'll leave that there. I could do geomarks too. I don't work with geomarks, so I better not talk about it. But anyway, now I've got BIM. Okay, so if I want, and BIM is basically, it tells me different things that are purchased in the project. It's kind of like a BOM, but it's used by architects. I don't use that because I usually don't do architects either. So anyway, this is where I'm generally at, is in tools. All right, so across the top, what do I got here? I've got different views. So if I want a 3D view, these are my 3D views. These are my 2D views. Top, left-hand side, front, right-hand side. And there's actually a bottom. I'm not sure why the bottom's not showing up there. This is for setting up viewports and so forth. But anyway, you get used to this over a period of time. But if there's certain tools you actually use quite a bit, it's best to get them set up, you know, the way you like. Okay, and it's just basically all a question of what you like. Now, somebody had called out to me. They said, well, on this particular drawing, how am I going to know where those holes are located? That's a kind of a good question, so let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so I'm going to give an X 250. And I want to give a Y. 250. So those are all at a 1/4 inch. Okay. It's best also to find out what your customer is looking for on CNC programs. They may want you to dimension a different way. There's all these different ways of dimensioning here. Some CNCs like you to dimension from one single point. It could be the center. Okay, and every dimension is based on the center of that object. You need to talk to your customer to find out how they like it dimensioned, or ask them for some dimension drawing so you can look at it and see how they have it set up. But anyway, okay, we got a lot of things here. We also got what we call a local menu. So if I right click right now, I'm going to come up with a whole bunch of different things here that I can do. Local snap is a very useful tool because you can decide what you want to snap to on the fly, and I can come down here and I can hit any of these types of snap points. And for those who aren't familiar with snaps, when you're dimensioning something, what'll happen is as you approach the center, the middle point, the vertex of a line or what have you, a little magnetic point's going to show up. So it says show magnetic point and auxiliary lines. And here's where you can go and you can set up ortho mode, which I'll explain. Ortho mode is if you recall on the angle, it only allows you to move X, Y in 45-degree increments. There's a lot of applications where that's very useful. So I'm going to close this here. I'm going to turn it on. And you'll notice, or it should, I'm not sure why it's not. Let's go see. Why isn't it doing what I want it to do? Oh, okay. I didn't turn that off. I thought I did. Okay. So now when I come up to a point, is it not grabbing that? For whatever reason, it is not allowing me to and what the problem is here is I'm not seeing the lower right hand corner to say OK due to a sizing issue on this. So it's going to keep turning off that snaps because I can't raise it high enough. I wonder, this is interesting. I always hate it when this stuff happens during a tutorial. Let me figure this out. I'm going to end it and we'll go come back to it. Okay, so yeah, I think I found out what the problem is. I may have to redo this whole video, but let's see what happens. I was trying to show snap, and in showing the snap, when I had been fussing around with icon size, I had changed the size of this pop-up. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to turn off no snap, but I couldn't get to the OK. All right, so now if I come in here and turn snap on, you're going to see, you see that little aperture there? That's a snap point, okay? And that makes it a lot easier to dimension when you have those than when you don't. But there's times particularly when you're moving items around. You don't want snaps on because it always wants to jump the object to a snap. So if that's the case, you just come down here and turn it off, okay? Now, on the case of, I said something about ortho. Let's take a look here. Ortho only allows you to go into the angle coordinates for X, Y, based on the degree that I set up. I set up 45 degrees, if you recall. So I'm going to draw a line here. That's 45. I'm going to go back to the vertex, and I'm going to go 0. And I'm going to go 90. See, it doesn't let me do anything but those increments. And that comes in very useful when you're trying to line stuff up. Okay, that's what we'll call ortho mode. Now if I turn that off, watch what happens. I can go in any way I want to go, okay? And so there's applications for ortho or no ortho, okay? All right. Okay, another thing you might need to know, I mean all CAD people know this, but if you're starting out, if I sweep from the lower right to the upper left, whatever this box touches gets highlighted. Okay, but if I go the opposite way, if I go from the upper left to the lower right, only what completely gets covered will be selected. And believe me, that is very, very, very useful. So that's why you got that as blue and this is green, so that you know that, okay? What else? All right, so these are my 2D tools on the left. You'll see me use them. If I'm changing anything, for example, right here, if I want to change the size of that, and that is just the polyline from a cube that I made earlier, okay? So this is polyline, right? I can come down here and I can change that polyline from 2.5 to 2, and then 3 to 6. And you're going to see a change. There is no X because it was a 2D polyline. We do have, and I don't have it set up right now. I have to go set it up, but I use it on the local menu. If I come over here, I can set my plane, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the next video. This is world plane, plane by world. That is plane by active view, which we'll explain all that. I actually don't know what that is because I never use it, and I use that a lot. So typically you want to start with any 2D drawing on plane by world. And if I want to turn on the work plane so I can see it, I do that there. You see this red now? I have turned on the work plane, and that's useful to make sure that you're in the right place. If you don't need it, I've got everything on the work plane, which is where it's supposed to be, so I can turn that off now that I've checked it. I don't need to look at that. Another line doesn't help. Okay, so there's a view again. Over here, I have my rendering styles. Okay, these guys right here. This guy here should give me draft rendering. And I've got it set up where all 2D stuff disappears in render because I don't really need to look at it. And then this is the photorealistic rendering, which is only use it when you need it because it really slows stuff down. It makes it hard to even drag the item around so you can look at it. Right now I'm trying to drag it. They're not letting me. Okay, but if I come down here to draft, and this little guy right here is used to put it in the center of the screen for you. And now that I got it on draft, I can examine it a whole lot easier, okay? And the same is true if I go to hidden line. Okay, it even gets easier to move around because it's less complex math. And then the wireframe, where all my 2D objects also get moved around. Okay, so those are the different ways of looking at it. And I think before I go, just talk a little bit about paper space. This is layout 1 here, but it's actually called a paper space, and you can name it whatever you want. But whatever you draw here in the model, and that's where all the dimensioning and all the drawing should take place. You set up views. I mean, we can set up views. For example, let's say I just want this 3D view. Okay, and I want to add that to my paper space. I can come over here to my paper space, and I can go ahead and add that view. I'll go 3D, and I'm going to go change a couple things. Viewport number 1. I should set this up permanently. I always forget, but I don't want the box. I want a fixed scale. It says right now it's at 6:1, so let's just make it an even 6:1. And what this is an overlap in this, where it was seeing something that we're not needing in our view, so that's why I locked the scale, so I can go ahead and basically crop it without changing the size. Okay, now down here under camera and render, I got it set up as wireframe, but I can go ahead and change it. I'm just going to put draft, and I'm going to put quality. Render. Okay. Well, there's your, what I should have did when I did that is I should have put in an isometric view. We'll go ahead and put an isometric view in. So I'll go back to model, and I'll go this view here. Come up here and create view. (3D2). All right, and then I'm going to come back over here to my paper space, and I'm going to put in the 3D2. There we go. close. And what are we going to do here? We're going to take off the boundary. We're going to make it a fixed scale. We had the last one at 6:1, so we'll make this one 6:1. And then we're going to go render, camera. Let's go draft. I guess that's all we need to do. There it is. There's your draft. So on a paper space, it will print that out for me. Pretty much just like you see it. Okay. So I did that just so you could see that you can do rendering on paper space too. You can have a 2D drawing, you can have a 3D render. I think that's as far as I want to go because it's getting pretty lengthy and I don't even know if this is recording properly, so I'm going to go ahead and end. I believe the command was control